Barak Shalom, everyone. It's Out the Box Kingdom Talk with me, Out the Box Kingdom. Welcome to my podcast. I hope you all are having a wonderful yum. I just wanted to come on here because I always had me in this wonderful place. I just love sharing his word, you know what I'm saying? And it's just not enough sound doctrine teaching out here, and so people are hungry and thirsty. I'm definitely one of those people. I love being in the presence of Abba and getting fresh revelation on some things. And but what I want to discuss today, I'm having an aha moment because Abba was just amazing. So I'm up here reading Acts chapter 1, right? And this is where, they're up in the upper room after Yahushua told them to wait in the upper room to receive the promise of the Ruach HaKodesh. We know that Yahuwah and the immersed water, but now they were in a place because, sometimes there are times where we can get mentored by someone, but when their time is done here, they will begin, or they train you to be their successor. And in this case, Yahushua knew that his time was up. He had to be at the right hand of Abba to advocate on our behalf when we have fallen short to Abba's commandments and instructions, right? But however, he had 12 successors instead of one, right? Because if he told them that they're getting ready to, if it's the Bashur is supposed to spread like wildfire, then one person can't do that. You know what I'm saying? That's why he strategically picked 12, to do the work. Now, let's go back into the Bashur right quick, because we are fully aware that Yahushua picked Kappa, Jacob, Yehukanan, Andri, Matthew, all of them. The only person that we are not aware of him picking, but just kind of tagged along, was Judas Iscariot, because it's interesting how they name everyone and then they say Yehuda Iscariot, the one that betrayed him. They don't say that his disciples. However, we know that Yahushua was fully aware that Judas was going to betray him and that the prophecy had to be fulfilled, right? Because Judas loved to be along for the ride, but his heart wasn't fully there, because look how he was easily persuaded by money. He was a treasurer, right? Over the money, but he was stealing. That's why he made the comment about Miriam breaking the alabaster flask and spreading her perfume, which was probably $100. Back then, that was a lie. You know what I'm saying? But he was more concerned about the worth of the perfume versus what it stood for. She gave her last to anoint and get the Mashiach prepared for his burial, or should I say his resurrection, right? And so we know that Judas Iscariot, he betrayed, and when he found out what the Pharisees really wanted him to do, see, he thought they was just going to take him captive and yell at him, but he had no clue that that they was going to kill Yahushua. So when he realized that, he came back and brought them the money, and he was like, oh, it's against the law for us to take money that got blood on it, blood money pretty much. But see, what they fail to realize is it was still their money. How ignorant can you be? That's how these elite people are. they get people to do their dirty work, but then they'll say, oh, we can't be a part of that. But you gave them the money to do it. You're still an accessory to murder or whatever, right? You're still part of it. So he throws the money down. Instead of going to ask for forgiveness, he hangs himself. And they pretty much take the money and bury it in the field. Because they said we can't put it back in back with the money because it's pretty much contaminated. It's blood money. So fast forward, because you're probably like, okay, Kendra, what is the topic? I'm getting there. Hold on, right? So, he dies or whatever. So now fast forward to Acts. So since Yahudah decided to take his own fate in his own hand and decided to take money, which ended up being buried in the field, which was called the field of blood. But every time I see the word field, I'm thinking about the field or the mountain of influences you're called into. Each of us is in a field or a trade or a career, right? But if you're doing wicked things, it becomes a field of blood. Look at the medical industry. That's what you would call a field of blood. The government, same thing. Arts and entertainment, they're doing the same thing. Everything that's requiring you to do ritual, everything against Abba Yahuah, you might as well say it's a field of blood. Okay, so we're now getting to Acts 1 when now they're getting ready to cast lots of someone to replace Yahudah Iscariot, right? Because he chose his own fate. And it's in between, if I'm not mistaken, it's between Yahuah and Barsabba, which you will see this in Acts chapter 1, verse 23. But they called his name Justice. And so what I love about it is they didn't just up and pick what they felt like was the person. They literally prayed about it. And this is what they said. It says, and this is verse 24. Acts 1, verse 24. And praying, they said, you, Yahuah, who know the hearts of all, show which one of these two you have chosen to receive the share in this service and office of emissary, from which Yahudah by transgression fell, to go to his own place. And they cast their lots, and the lot fell on Yahuah, and he was numbered with the 11 emissaries. Now, this is hilarious. This is where I had an aha moment, because you remember that Judas Iscariot was over the money. He was the treasurer, but he was stealing, right? But we remember, if you remember, in the Bashurs, especially Yahuah, he wrote one of the books. Hello. He wrote one of the sephers, right? Isn't it something how Yahusha already knew what Judas was going to do, and he already had Judas' replacement in the midst of them? Because if you remember, Yahuah was a tax collector, so he was already good with money. You might as well say he was a kingdom accountant. So when you think about where the lots fell on, and it fell on Yahuah, and remember Judas was over the money, why not replace him with somebody that you know you can trust with money, that's already worked that field, and they've been trained by you? So in actuality, Yehuda's replacement was right in front of him the whole time. He did not know, but Yahusha knew. Come on. I'm going to give you another example. When it came to Dawood and Saul. Now, Abba intentionally... Okay, you probably like, okay, Kendra, what is the topic? I don't really have one, but I need one, right? So, your mentor is going to be surprised that you are their replacement. Or should I say, don't be surprised that you are your mentor's replacement. Simple as that. And it doesn't always have to mean that they have transgressed or they've been warned and to sit down and they didn't. It's just their time. They're probably getting ready to transition into rest, or they have done what they're supposed to do. So Abba's having them to sit down. Like, Dawood, he had his time of rest, and it was to rest until it was time for him to transition home. So Solomon ended up replacing Dawood. But so the topic is, don't be surprised that you are replacing your mentor. And we see this, and it goes with the whole changing of guards thing. That's why it's so much transitioning, name changes going on in the natural realm and in the spirit realm. That's what a lot of y'all are feeling like y'all going through an acceleration course or getting deep in his word. Or y'all done dreamt about you being told that you've been promoted. You're having more dreams of you being elevated. And of course they like to say, oh, new levels, new devils. But I was going to train you. But as you're coming more into leadership role, there is more responsibility because you're held accountable for your actions. You no longer, like my husband was saying, when you're a soldier, you can't, when you get promoted to an E5, you no longer can do what the Joes do. That's what he said. The E1s to the E4s, you no longer can do what they do, because now you're responsible and you have to train them in the way they're supposed to go. So they're looking to you to help them so they can eventually become a leader. The ripple effect, pretty much, right? And so, jeez, this is powerful. Bear with me, y'all. So we see a lot of changing of guards all throughout scripture. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was, changing of guards. What was the first one? I'm just throw some out there. Like I said, Dawood and Saul. We know that Saul compromised. He did things halfway, and he got stripped from his title, his authority from Abba Yahuah, because he was more concerned about man versus the heart of Abba. So he got replaced by Dawood. Now, Dawood knew he was being trained, but he didn't know exactly what he was being trained for until the Nabiim, or should I say prophet, Samuel was sent there. Samuel was sent to his house to anoint his head with oil. Now, did Dawood immediately get into his king position? No, because Saul was still in reign. The whole Saul reign had to die off, and we know how that happened, which I still felt like that Abba could have spared Jonathan, but hey, back then it was like one messed up, everybody died in your family. That was just Abba's rules. But we know that Dawood had been trained, and he did exceedingly and abundantly over Saul, that people was just paying attention to this. It wasn't about his looks or anything like that. It's just David had been trained in private in the secret place with Abba. You know what I'm saying? Saul had an issue of repenting. He wanted Samuel to go and repent on his behalf instead of him going. And then he had a nerve to go to a psychic or a median. the witcher in Kendor, which Abba tells us not to go and seek no advice from a witch or anything like that, psychic or mediums. So he gets replaced by Dawood. Because of Saul's disobedience, he got replaced. Okay. Then we have Moshe and Yahusha, or Yahushua, that people will pronounce. He gets trained by Moshe, which we know Caleb and Yahusha, or Joshua, got trained by Moshe. And, well, they were the spies then, but really the successor, because actually Moshe was the one that named Yahusha, which is Yahushua. He named him. So he went through a name change before he in that whole process of saying that he was going to be a successor. So, because Moshe struck the rock instead of commanding the rock to produce the water, he didn't get to go in the promised land. So he pretty much had to explain that to Yahushua, or Abba had him to bring him up there to let him know, hey, you gotta now take Moshe's spot. And he was sad about it, but hey, Abba was saying he was ready for it. He was prepared. And that Yahushua did. He did exactly what he was called to do, despite of what the children of the Israelites did. He still did what he was supposed to do all the way up to it was time for him to rest. Then we have the book of Judges, of course. When one died, another one was rising up. So changing the guards once again. But I thought it was quite interesting. Man, I thought it was quite interesting because, like I said, I was worried when you go back and read a lot of it. It's like, man, what? Did it just happen? Yeah, it did. It was right there in front of your face the whole time. Now, we are fully aware of the changing the guards, like 1st and 2nd Chronicles and all that other stuff. The changing the guards all up in there. But it's not an obvious thing. We don't really think too much of it when we're reading New Testament. But it's right there. It is right there. So I was like, wow. Yahushua was slick with it. He had literally Yehudas Iscariot's replacement right there in front of him. You know what I'm saying? Right there. And he was already trained that when it was time for them to cast lots and Abba Yahuah chose Matthew Yahuah, I was like, you know what? I'm not surprised. Wow. Why didn't I see this? Okay, because I wasn't ready to see it. And so I was just like, wow. Even when it came down, okay, so he wants me to go here. So we know about Stephen, what happened to Stephanos, which one of my dear friends, she's like a sister, she gets really sad when we talk about Stephanos because she was like, I don't know why he had to die so prematurely. And we don't know, Abba knows the destinies of everybody. I mean, Yahushua was 33 years old when he died and was resurrected. And Stephanos, it don't really have it documented how old he was. He was just very young. However, it's interesting that the one, even though he didn't throw the stones at him, he was the instigator. But he ended up being, you might as well say, Stephanos' replacement. However, because he was the instigator of him being stoned, that's why Paul had to suffer for Yahushua's sake. He had to realize this is what this rock was really like. Now you get to feel it on the other side. Yes, you were the persecutor, but now you're going to be the one that's persecuted. Now you're going to know what it's like to suffer for my name's sake. in the hands of the people that claim they know me and they don't know me. You know, he had been in the... Why not pick Paul? Because Paul knew the language of the Pharisees. He knew how they operated. He was very intelligent. He had, quote unquote, dual citizenship. Even though he was a Hebrew, he said he was a Roman citizen. So he had dual, almost like Moshe at the beginning, you know, in Exodus. You almost might as well say he had a dual citizenship, because even though he was a Hebrew man, he was raised as a Mitzrayite. You see what I'm saying? He knew the system. So of course, even though you have your own people that you really want to minister to, Abba will sometimes, or have it already written out for you to go to the other nations. That's why Paul went after the other nations, because he already knew their lingo. He was a Roman citizen. Who else would Abba use to teach the so-called Gentiles or the other Goyim the Bashur other than Paul? That's why I say a lot of us don't know what we are equipped with. We think we're so unequipped, but Abba already knows what's in us already. You know what I'm saying? Because let's get real here. Yahushua was rejected by his own people. A lot of us been rejected by our own people. Yet someone that don't look like us can go and teach the same thing we just taught, and it's easily to be received. But yet we can go to a whole nother nation and they be open to our teaching versus our own people. Sometimes it's backward. It's very, very backwards. But on that note, this message is really short. It's pretty much a straight to the point message. You don't be surprised that you've been sent, or you're replacing your mentor. And I pray and hope that a lot of you have had good mentors. And if not, then, and they've been disobedient. Oh, he just brought up the whole thing with Eli and Samuel. Eli compromised too. He let his sons do things against Abba Yahuah, and the whole house got killed. But guess what? Samuel was under Eli, and he was getting replaced by Samuel. And Samuel had to come and say, "Thus says Yahuah." He said, "If you don't tell me what Yahuah said, may he do unto me as he, may he do unto you as he's getting ready to do unto me." And Samuel was very young on top of that. But he had a face-to-face encounter with Abba. He called him by his name, but he did not know him. But when he had the encounter that changed his life, and Abba began to tell him, and it grieved him because he was very fond of Eli. But that's the whole point. Some of us can be very fond of our mentors, and we don't want to see them go. We don't want to see them replaced. We don't even want them to be upset that we're replacing them. But all you can do is pray that Abba will help them not lean on their own understanding, that they don't have animosity towards you, because it's not your fault. It's something they did or something they refused to do, and because they got multiple warnings and then allow Abba to do the work in them, they're getting chopped down like Nebuchadnezzar, or they're getting completely removed out of their spot, because now they have turned teaching the Bashur about them versus about Yahushua and Yahuah. Unlike you've gone through some things. You know where your strength comes from. You know who has delivered you from your troubles and your fears. Just like Dawood, Abba trained him where he was able to take down a lion and a bear that was trying to go after the sheep. You're going to care for the sheep. You're not going to let no wolves in sheep clothing try to come in there and take your sheep out. That Abba has placed you to be a shepherd over, or compromise in sound doctrine teaching because you want likes and followers. You're all about the truth and nothing but the truth. And that's point blank straight. You're not trying to water down anything to make somebody feel comfortable or because you're trying to meet quota of numbers. You want your ministry popular. That is not who you are. And Abba knows this, so that's why you're replacing them. However, something to be mindful, don't get too arrogant and cocky and don't allow the enemy come in and seek pride in you that you don't think you can be replaced. Because you definitely can. You can be sat down. So, on that note, don't be surprised if a lot of you right now are in the process as things are transitioning, that you're replacing your mentor, or there just have been a seat vacant and I was just, he's getting ready to place you in that vacant seat that's only been made for you, but he had to prepare you for it. So that's the message. Wow. So Abba Yahuah, I told you for this wonderful yum. I told you for this word that you're giving your children. And you're just preparing us. You order our steps. You take us through a time of refining. You deal with our heart posture. You're dealing with our mindsets. You're renewing our minds. And those that are choosing not to compromise and they're choosing to go deeper in your word because they want to understand who you are as Abba. They want to understand more about the ministry of Yahusha. They want to understand more about how he strategically picked each talisman. There's nuggets in your word, and you're speaking very loudly, but the only people that will receive the word is those that have ears to hear. Let them hear. And so Abba, we just told you that you're just preparing us, and even though we don't like to see mentors being replaced, you know what has been going on in the background of these people's lives. And unfortunately, a lot of these big influencers and stuff has led your sheep astray. They have led your sheep to the slaughter versus towards the resurrection, life, and restoration. You said the enemy comes in like a flood, but you raise a standard. And the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. But you come to give life so that they might have life abundantly. In order for them to have life abundantly, they got to understand your word. They got to read the word for themselves. And it's not for your sheep to idolize the person that is their mentor. They're not to be exalted above you. But the mentor is there, or should I say the teacher. You're the ultimate. The Ruach HaKodesh is the ultimate teacher. Let's get that straight. But the vessel that you're using to train people, it's not for them to exalt themselves that the people are serving them, but they're supposed to serve the people. That was the whole point of the foot washing thing. There was no emissary greater than the other. It was the one that served. Right? But unfortunately, the building has taught it incorrectly. So now you got to set the record straight. And in order to do that, you got to replace the contaminated mantles with purified mantles. The ones that's been filled with your Ruach HaKodesh, the mantle. Some of these people carry mantles of fire. They come in, they're not playing. It's like you said, Jeremiah, that their mouths are going to burn the people up like chaff. They're going to be like wood. Because the words that come out of these remnants, it's going to burn things up. It's going to tear things down, but they're going to build and replant. And so, we told Abba Yahuah for the changing of guards, whether we like it or not. We understand people don't like a certain person in office, but you're still going to use him for your purpose. The guy also in Africa, you're going to use him for your purpose. He is a prophetic act with what's getting ready to go down. People are upset because South Africans are here, guess what? You're still going to use them for your purpose. Whatever that is, it's none of our business. It's not for us to even judge. But it's for us to stay focused and allow you to prepare us for the seats that you're placing a lot of us in. Because these are positions not to be messed with. It's not something to be taken very lightly. It's to be taken very serious. And so, may your will be done on the arets as it is in the Shemin. And so, yeah, may you just order our steps as the obedient ones. So I seal this prayer with the blood of Yahushua Mashiach. In Yahushua's name I pray. Amen. So, once again, go back and read Acts 1. So Abba can give you your own personal revelation. But I thought I would share this word with you guys. I thought it was very interesting. I was like, wow. The replacement was right there in front of his face the whole time. And Yahushua knew about it. But anyway. That's all I have. So thanks for tuning in with Out the Box Kingdom Talk with me. Out the Box Kingdom. Barak Shalom.